All right. Well, hi, hello, and welcome to How AI Impacts the Future of Pentest Reporting and Vulnerability Management. Now, today's awesome webinar is sponsored by PlexTrac and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is Jess Steinbach. I'm with Actual Tech Media, and I am absolutely thrilled that I get to be your moderator for this webinar because I love talking about AI, and this is a super interesting element when we look at pen testing, right? I am basically on the edge of my seat, or I guess I'm on the edge of my standing mat today alongside all of you because AI is such an interesting tool. It is this layered and complex conversation. It kind of spans all borders and crosses into all industries. You know, conversations being had with people that are techie and not techie alike, right? It's a top of mind conversation. And one thing that we all agree on is that this tool can be used for evil as well as it can be used for good. So today, we get to talk to two of the heroes of the good side, two incredible experts who are going to walk us through the transformative impact of AI when it comes to offensive security processes and workflows. I cannot wait to get started on our chat today. So I'm going to zip through just a few of the housekeeping points that are going to help you get the most out of our conversation, and then we'll get this show on the road. So let's start with a little bit of a tour of your audience console. We're going to kick things off in the questions window. I actually already saw some questions coming in today. That's amazing. You guys are ready to rock. I love that. But the questions window, again, if you haven't already used this, is a great place to interact with our speakers today. Now, our speakers are wanting to see your questions. They're going to be interacting with them live as we go through our conversation. So they will adjust the flow and the topic that they're getting to because obviously these are very layered and complex ideas. So they will adjust on the fly based on what's interesting to you. So ask those questions, give them those prompts, tell them where you want to go in this conversation. So be sure that you are interacting with that questions window. If you haven't already done so, you can give it a little test run right now. You can say hi, hello to the community here with us. I've got Zhang, I've got Tony. Let's see, I've got Corey. Hey, Corey from Wisconsin, love that. Godfrey here. We've got a whole awesome crew. Paul, Steve, I love this. Alexander, Jorge. Keep those highs and hellos coming in. Keep giving us those welcomes. We love seeing all of you interacting out there. And make sure you get those questions in as we go through our day today. Now, that questions window is also the best place to reach out to us if you do have any technical issues. Knock on wood, hopefully that doesn't come up. But if something gets in your way today, you know, something's not refreshing or sound drops or something like that, the first thing you're going to try is a browser refresh. That is going to clear out most of the usual tech gremlins, but if they are clinging on, no problem. If the browser refresh doesn't work, you're going to post in that questions window, let the actual tech media crew know they are having some troubles, and we will be there to help you out. Okay, so questions window, we hit that. Next, we're going to go over to the handouts tab. This is absolutely full of really cool resources and takeaways. I promise you are going to want to spend some time exploring those resources. So right now, open the tabs, download the handouts, make sure you've got those. You're going to want to spend some time with them after we wrap. Don't leave just yet. Don't go too far down that rabbit hole yet because we've got a whole awesome session in front of us. But when we finish, you are going to want to dig in a little bit deeper. So make sure you've got those resources open and hold on to those, all right? So questions window, handouts tab, great, awesome. We've got this covered. We are almost ready to go. The last thing I want to talk to you about are prizes. So we have a $250 Amazon gift card that we will be giving away at the end of our webinar. So stay tuned for that. You do need to be here, live, present, lucky, yes. And you do need to meet all of our Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. Now those are listed for you in the handouts tab that we were just chatting about. So if you're not sure what the terms and conditions are, go over to the handouts tab, click in, scroll down, you'll find them all waiting for you there. Now, we also have another prize in the works for you today, and that is the $50 Best Question gift card. So I can see already that we've got all these wonderful questions coming in and excited folks out there. I don't think we're going to need a lot of extra incentive to ask questions, especially when it comes to AI, but we have it for you anyway. So we have a $50 Amazon gift card going to the Best Question Asked. Now, even if your question does not get read out in our live and interactive session or in our Q&A at the end, you are still entered to win just by asking that question. We will review everything that's asked after we wrap. So keep those questions rolling in. You get a gold star from me for that. You get a fun and interactive conversation, and you are entered to win that $50 Best Question gift card. All right, that was a lot of stuff we covered very quickly because I am just dying to get into this conversation. I want to get our speakers on out here with me. In just a second here, I'm going to introduce and bring out Michael Bell, Head of AI at PlexTrac. I love that title. Very cool job, Michael. And his featured guest here today with us, Jason Haddix, CEO and hacker and trainer, Arcanum Information Security. So let me get Mike and Jason on out here with us. Mike, Jason, thank you so much for being here with me today. Mike, I think you're going to kick us off, give us a little bit of idea of what our audience has in store. So I'm going to hand things over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Jess. Yeah, I'm here to. So I'm Mike Bell. I'm the head of AI at PlexTrac. Just working to provide some knowledge on how we're using AI and kind of how it's affecting our industry. Yeah, Jason, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Jason Haddix. I've been in offensive security for about 20 years. I've also sat in the CISO seat, and now I run my own company of training for offensive security people. And I run a class actually on this topic on using AI in cybersecurity for red, blue, and purple teams. So, Michael and the PlexTrac guys are like, "Hey, you want to, do some Q&A and just like a cool webinar where we talk about this stuff?" And I was more than excited to come on and just kind of brain dump and brainstorm, all these really cool topics. As we prefaced, it's a wonderful, fast moving topic right now.
Yeah. So we're going to be just touching on a couple of points as an overall overview. We kind of both like to be informal and have a really kind of Q&A back and forth with you guys. So if anybody has any questions, please jump on that chat and ask those questions. But we're going to be going over some stuff about enhanced pen test reporting, how we can leverage AI for that, vulnerability management, covering how using AI and concerns around data security and customer data, user data, and then, a little plug at the end for how we're implementing it and showing kind of a little demo for that. So I will move to the next slide. Yeah. So we are, like I said, we're going to be going over how we can enhance pen test reporting, empowering vulnerability management, and these couple other points. Yeah, Jason. So enhanced pen test reporting, it's it's kind of a ball of wax.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm sure as you guys, work with a lot of pen test companies who are designing, their pen test reports through PlexTrac, right? You see a lot of variance in, like what people put in their reports, and um, one of the things that in my red teaming, I went from pretty much offensive security, then took a break to be a CISO, and then came back to red teaming, hardcore red teaming. One of the things that's really, when I was doing that, was that really caused a lot of success was the report, right? Because it's the final artifact that you give to the client, right? And no matter how good your findings are, if they're presented poorly, then your whole project is kind of put in a bad light. And so, reporting was one of the biggest things that I really wanted to make sure that we were doing really, really well. Not only design, but I wanted to extend on kind of what red teams and pen test teams were doing in kind of the world of like reporting. And so I went out and I basically downloaded every public report that existed on the internet of a pen test report. There's some repos out there and stuff that collect these things, and then some people post sample reports and stuff. And I was looking and seeing what was the best and the best. And what I found was that okay, well, there's a lot of really good pen test reports that present the vulnerabilities in a certain way that are fine, and they're designed well and they're written well. But what I found was that the remediation and the defensive part of the reporting was not very good across the whole industry. And so I took a good long sit down and I was like, well, how can I make, reporting better? And so, what I did was I went on a bunch of defensive research to make my pen test reports, 50% finding, and then for every one of those findings, also 50% defensive information for the developers. Because at the end of the day, the burden, sits on the developer of the application or, the maintainer of the infrastructure. And so I started using AI to do this, which was fantastic, worked way better than I thought it ever was. So happy to dive into like some of the topics of the things that I was able to put in there. But AI was the first place where I really used AI in pen test reporting, was to was to basically add a whole bunch of defensive information that I think my clients had never got. And when my clients received these reports, they were like, "This is amazing! Like, we have never seen a pen test company go this deep in remediation, and can you do more of this?" And so our red team reports end up looking kind of like purple team reports sometimes, which is really interesting.
Yeah, and that's, I kind of found the same thing, and that's kind of the mindset that we went into with this, was to be able to communicate effectively between those testers and the people consuming the reports. And because I found the same thing, where I was a pen tester for a number of years, and same kind of path. And yeah, just being able to communicate that, like you said, it's the last deliverable. It better look good. You can do as hard of hacking or as much hacking and get into all the cool things during a pen test, but if you can't communicate why that's important to the board or to the person you're delivering the report to, the report doesn't really mean anything, and you don't keep business by doing that. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, one of the things I found in the research was that technical testers are the first drafters of usually pen test reports. And so the first thing that was really apparent is that they spoke to, in their findings descriptions, they spoke to other testers, right? They spoke, a lot of techie, which is great. I speak techie and I love techie, but there's like a different audience, in the executive section, and there's a different audience actually in the findings too, developer tie-ins and stuff like that, and speaking to a developer rather than a security person has to be something you do. And then the other place I found was just business impact, right? Like, not a lot of people were really tying their vulnerabilities into business impact. The AI was great at both of those things. So taking a very technical topic and helping me realize when I was being too technical and breaking it down for another audience, and then also giving me developer-focused communication, which was things like you don't think of every day. So when a developer gets a vulnerability out of a report, a lot of times what testers give them is like a vulnerability scanner output, or like a burp suite screenshot or something like that. One of these tools that security people use. Developers don't use our same tool sets, and so the first thing that the AI told me to do was, developers know how to use curl, present all of your findings in curl scripts so that they can reproduce the vulnerability live. And I was like, that is fantastic. We're doing that for every finding so that developers can reproduce via a curl script. And then in the remediation section, I had very specific ideas around how good remediation should be and what remediation meant. And so I broke it down into 3 levels. So one was code level remediation via a library that you can bake into your application, and then holistic server level protections that protect it against the vulnerability in question. And so when I prompted ChatGPT to do some of this in AI, it was easily able to break down my mental model into really good recommendations at the developer level for a lot of remediation, which was way better than our competition usually.
yeah, and that's what I kind of saw as well, is getting with that communication gap. I threw up the bridging the communication gap slide, but yeah, to your point, there's going to be different audiences. Almost every report, every organization, or if you're a consultant providing pen testing services, you're going to hack a bank one day and a hospital the next, and mom and pop's restaurant the third
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
And it's hard to stay an expert or stay abreast in all of those different industries to be able to communicate what the priorities are for them. It could be HIPAA, or it could be PII protection, any of those things. And so,
yeah.
I think that
those
was
compliances
one to teach our juniors.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about your experience, but the compliance also, like taking what I had from a technical tester point of view and breaking it down into why it matters to them via whatever compliance they're subject to, was always a long and arduous kind of writing and research journey in every report. And with AI, because it's trained on that data set of what the compliances are, so many people have written about the compliances. AI can do that really quickly and save the report writers a lot of time. So
yeah, and special fine-tuned models that are even further augmented by current, compliance documentation and other things like that. It's just continuing to grow. The whole field is so. With the ability to kind of identify those compliance violations will be, it's going to be a very important topic coming up, especially with, even AI compliance looping back through and into that. Sam Smith had asked, how can the AI predict vulnerabilities? Is it based on similar vulnerabilities that have been discovered? And would it be better to build a pattern in your development systems or deployment process? That's a great question, Sam. I think that, yes, there's a combination of it. There's always going to be ways that you can improve your development process. Your SDLC can always have, updates to it. But I think that, as we can always develop, hackers and attackers and threat actors are always developing as well to find new vulnerabilities and to find those things that, us as humans on a small scale don't kind of take into account. And so, leveraging AI and different language models to identify those things and pick out those things on a large scale is kind of where I see the industry going.
So this was an interesting one, Sam. So it's a great question. And, what you can do is you can kind of take your vulnerability management, kind of all of your vulns that you have in your vulnerability management program. And you can ask the AI based on subsections of that data to help you discover things like regressions or other places where those vulns might exist on your networks, both internal and external, and also similar vulnerabilities. Now, is AI the best tool for that always? Sometimes AI is the best tool for that. Sometimes a hybrid solution of AI and actual programming or scripting is a solution to that. A lot of people jump to like, oh, let the AI do it all itself, right? And we're not quite there yet, at least in my opinion, to just have like automated pen testing and vulnerability discovery. Even the white papers that are coming out right now are talking about, like we can get somewhat there, but it has to be very discrete in what the AI is looking for. So one of the things that I do is in my pen testing is a lot of times I'll look at, or my bug bounty hunting, I still do bug bounty hunting in my free time, is let's say a CVE comes out on a piece of infrastructure that a client of mine has, right? And let's just say it's a very simple vulnerability, like a cross-site scripting vulnerability, and they've patched that vulnerability. I have an AI bot where I give them context about the old vulnerability that they've patched and secured now, and the attack string. And what it'll do is it'll change the attack string using different tricks that I usually use as a pen tester and give me 5 or 10 new attack strings to see if I can bypass whatever fix they've put in there. And so these discrete problems for discrete vulnerabilities, the bot is already really good. AI is already really good at this as long as you can prompt really well. And this is the new skill set that you have to have as an engineer these days, not even a security engineer, but an engineer, is to know how to lead the bot using prompt engineering. And so I have a whole bunch of those for different vulnerability types. And so sometimes I discover new, technically they're 0 days, they're new CVEs and bypasses to stuff, but they're not technically complicated. They're still very shallow at the web app level and stuff like that. For vulnerabilities that are like exploits and binary stuff, it's not there yet.
No, sorry, I agree. And I think I was saying, just add an extra couple of dots for directory traversal, even though they said they patched it.
Mm-hmm.
And
for sure.
I agree. I think another, way that kind of shines as well is on the reverse side of that, decoding complex, attack strings, whether it's attackers using multiple encodings for base 64 strings to hide their payloads or queries. AI does a fairly good job at kind of deciphering through that and pulling out the required information, and really helps you kind of bridge that gap of knowledge and time. A lot of incident responders, it's a time thing. You just got to sift through everything. You'll have your tools, but that validation and that initial check of those things is very, very time consuming.
And I mean, in the future, we'll have systems of agents, and we're already finding, AI agent systems. If you're not familiar with an AI agent system, it's the idea of, a whole bunch of discrete problems being handled by small little AI, what we call them agents, but they're just small little models to do one specific thing, and then they're controlled by an overseer, AI that controls the whole project. So you could be like, the overseer bot could be like, your instruction, the overseer bot could be like, pen test this network, here's all the information I have about it. And then the overseer bot knows how to split up that project into discrete things and give it to agents. And then the agents are equipped with tools. So some of them can, run an attack string, and some of them can do research on an attack and, maybe mutate it like we were talking about. So these systems are what everybody wants to build towards, because they get us more towards autonomous, automatic pen testing. But it's still very, very in its infancy right now. And, I'm on the cutting edge of this. I'm researching it like every day, and there's still a lot of stuff to be ironed out in agenting kind of this world right now.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of the big, OWASP top tens for LLMs is giving them too much agency, excessive agency, and so that's where I see a lot of that coming in, and a lot of people in our industry, rightly so, are paranoid about how AI is going to interact. And so giving it capabilities to do those sorts of things is definitely a game where I think we need to take deliberate steps in, and kind of expand in that space, because there is with that top down level approach, I've seen a lot of research papers come out recently where they're doing that and combining it with sandbox regression testing. So Fun Search was one of them, where they were doing like the bin cap problem, and they were able to achieve a higher level of efficiency. And so systems like that, where an AI can kind of be in a sandboxed environment and test things over and over again, I think is a really kind of interesting path that people are going down, and could really help penetration testers, exploit developers, those kind of things.
We got one here from Steve Chang, I think. We got two, actually. Good questions. So, due to data poisoning, AI could provide false analysis results. Current vuln scans or pen tests are already known to have false positives sometimes. How can we use AI in vuln scans and pen tests to reduce false positives instead of adding more false positives to the report? This is a good question. I think, at least in my experience, I always tell anyone who's using the current gen of LLMs, which is what most people are using right now, large language models, like ChatGPT or Llama or whatever. You got to trust. You can trust, but you got to verify. Which is why none of our jobs are going anywhere anytime soon, because there is still hallucination. My example in my class that I teach about this stuff is the recent Google AI that they had integrated. Which was like, somebody asked like, hey, my cheese is not sticking to my pizza, what do I do? And the LLM behind it basically said, hey, if you add a little bit of Elmer's glue to your pizza sauce, as long as it's non-toxic, your cheese will stick better to your pizza. And so when people went down the rabbit hole of trying to find out where that training data came for the LLM, it turns out it came from Reddit comments that were like 5 years ago. And so one of the things for the model makers is choosing clean and reliable data in order to go into training the model, or post-training out all of the ridiculous stuff that is in there. And so, like, obviously nobody wants to put Elmer's glue in their pizza sauce. So like, you got to make sure that you can trust, at first glance, but you got to verify as well.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I think, an added element to that can kind of reduce those hallucinations and inaccurate data is, doing grounding methods, having data stores using either RAG-based implementations, those sorts of things, to kind of give the AI guardrails for your data, so to speak, and for the data that it's ingested. And, more to your point, Steve, with the reducing false positives, they're continuously growing. Models are continuously growing, and our processes for providing data for those models and to train those models or build our different plugins or different sub agents, as Jason was talking about. we're going to continuously learn what works better and what doesn't. So, the last wave of AI, we got anomaly detection, behavioral analytics for firewalls, those kind of things. I think this wave of AI is going to be a lot bigger, but I think that the ability to kind of talk to your data with LLMs and getting that puzzle view kind of solved is where we're heading with this. And so taking and asking, do I have any things that could be a false positive? And the LLM knows, like, yeah, you have 500 PHP vulnerabilities. Everybody does, because you're one package behind.
Yeah.
Sorts of
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah.
If you're bringing in a scan, you got to dedupe it somehow. So I see a big piece of it going towards that.
I think right now also is like this is where a hybrid system comes into play, right? So let's say you're a pen testing company and you have to do vulnerability scans as like the first level of coverage, right? Which everybody does. Whether you're using Nessus or you're using something, right? Well, the place where LLMs can help right now, because like I said, they've been trained on all of the documentation and blogging around all these tools that we as offensive security people use. They're really great at creating templates. So the two bots that I use the most are I have a Nasal script bot for Tenable Nessus, which builds custom Nasal scripts, which I can identify vulnerabilities as soon as I hear about them. And I just feed it context or the GitHub repo around a proof of concept, and it'll build me a Nasal script, as well as a Nuclei template creator as well. So Nuclei is an open source vulnerability scanning tool. And since those formats have been around, Nasal scripting has been around forever, and Nuclei is very well documented on the internet. When I provide it the context around what the vulnerability is, maybe a proof of concept for the vulnerability, it can write me a detection script at like 95 percentile like success. Like I've only had a few that have failed before in those two cases. And then you can automatically run those using scripting, or your testers can do that. And what that allows you to do is just be a better outfit of pen testing, right? First of all, if the scripts are written well, then you can verify. There's no more false positives, right? You can verify vulnerability, and then it also allows you to be faster than even some of those companies. Sometimes it takes a research company 2, 3, 4 days to build a check for a certain vulnerability that comes out, because maybe it's a smaller deployment of software across the internet and it's not as popular, but it's used in your organization. And so one of the things that's really great to empower your team with is have a chat internally, whether you use Teams or Slack or whatever. Have them and bring your developers in. And what we did at one of the companies is basically everyone's invited to the security channel. And when there's a new proof of concept, someone just drops in. They're like, hey, do we care about this? And then you use like emojis to vote it up or vote it down, like Reddit. And people are like, yeah, this is deployed pretty widely. And security cares about this because it could be an issue for us. And then so that decides on whether you need to action it. And then you have an AI bot with all the information that you provided it, build a proof of concept, and you can find these vulns and correct them before even sometimes the bigger name vulnerability research companies come out with a check, which was fantastic because, we were able to burn down vulnerabilities really quickly.
Yeah, the clients love it. You're able to turn around and
for
say,
sure.
hey, this came out, nobody has an answer for it, but here you go. This is, how you can validate it, how you can detect it. And I like it too, because the conversational aspect, it's instead of having to know how to structure those queries and do all that kind of stuff, and know those languages, the LLMs fine-tuned on that data and what's important, can do it in such a shorter amount of time. And then you can just talk to it and say, I also want to include this check, or I want to include this ability. And because you see something that could be a result of implementing the fix. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of different avenues that it's going to be able to assist in. Kathy asked, which I'll kick over to you, Jason, is what training do you recommend for beginners to help us understand AI, reporting, scripting to verify AI results?
Yeah, so just for, general usage of AI and kind of breaking it down, there's a lot of new courses coming out. I think one of the key things that you have to learn is a little bit about the models themselves, how they work, and then a lot about prompt engineering to get the models to do what you want. And so I'm a big fan of one, not sponsored or anything like that. I just like them. It's a company called learnprompting.org. And the reason I like learnprompting.org is I met the guy who's behind it. His name is Sander at DEF CON, one of the hacker conferences. And we were talking, and he did this competition where he put up a website in front of a whole bunch of open source models and then opened it to the world like a CTF competition. And everybody went after these models trying to get it to do certain things that were against its nature. And so then he took all that, analyzed it as a grad student in his university, and then wrote probably one of the most fantastic prompt engineering white papers I've ever seen. And he actually won an award for it at the AI Congress conference. And so he has turned that into a training for normal people. So it's learnprompting.org, and he has like an introduction to LLM class for absolutely new people, all the way to advanced prompt engineering, all the way to image stuff. If you've never worked with the image AI, he talks about that kind of stuff. So, and it's really affordable too. So it's been one of the things that I provide.
Oh, sorry about that. Don't they
No,
also
please,
cover
please.
Prompt hacking and
Yeah,
prompt injection methods as well? I think I have a couple of certifications through them, and it's really good course content. I like it, and it does a very good job at really breaking everything down and kind of really, really digestible. Was he the one behind the wizard, like hacking the wizard? Was that what you were talking about?
That's the other one I recommend is Lakera. So Lakera is a AI security company that has done several competitions, CTFs around one, and they have an open one. It's called Gandalf. It's called Gandalf, or the website is gandalf.lakera.ai. And so this is when you're done with kind of the learn prompting stuff to get your feet wet to understand AI and prompting, then you can go do the CTF, or if you already have some knowledge, you can go to the CTF directly. And it gives you a fantastic 8-level challenge to try to get this wizard to give you his password. And each level is harder and harder. And now I think they have up to 14 levels. And so Lakera is also at the forefront of prompt security and prompt firewalling. And so they've released some excellent papers really recently. They did a competition at RSA, which was fantastic, of which I played in. So so Lakera has Lakera.ai has a lot of really good resources as well.
Yeah. Oh, and to just touch on learn prompting again, obviously they're not involved, sponsored or anything, but they're also really accessible for cost. I think it's like $39 a month to be able to take any of their courses or anything like that. So if you want to learn about AI and prompting, which is a huge piece of what AI and LLMs are going to be consuming going forward, it's a great place to start.
Yep.
Let's see. Do we have any other questions? Let's see. So for vuln scans and pen tests that are run on a regular basis, so Steve asked this one. And timely because part of that is up on the screen. Yeah. So for vulnerability management, it's kind of a touchy word in AI, but biases are built in, not just to AIs and LLMs, obviously, but to us as humans. And so, when we're looking at the security data, if we've done what we need to do to kind of ground the model and train it and ensure that the quality is high for that model, using that to kind of remove the bias in what we're looking at. So if we run across a vulnerability, SMB1 is enabled, and that's obviously bad. We're going to do the sniffing and get your hashes and break into everything. And so, your IT manager, your security manager says, oh, well, that's not a high priority because we've got these protections. But going through your scans, going through your alerts, and having AI kind of look at that as a whole picture, using traditional methods of machine learning and deep learning combined with the LLM, it allows us to kind of remove a lot of that bias that we would kind of inject into the process of what we're going to do for remediation, and what findings are the highest priority. And that can be achieved through ingesting, threat data, intelligence feeds, log data, and generating embeddings for that kind of stuff, and really kind of using those methods, retrieval, augmented generation, and a few other things to kind of give you a much better picture of what you have going on for vulnerability, and then just doing that continuous validation with methods like Jason mentioned earlier are just invaluable.
Yeah, I mean, as a person who wants to like use this just as much as you do, Steve, for cool stuff, I agree that we want, what everyone's trying to sell you right now in security products, across the board as a consumer of security products, is the idea of these autonomous like oracles that take all of this log data and tell you how to be, easily secure and do all of your rules for you. And we're not there yet. I believe in a future state we will be there. So right now, your tools that do the vuln scans and vulnerability management and stuff, that data, can be augmented by AI, can be cleaned by AI, enriched by AI. But right now, it's not a full Oracle system that just like is this awesome, Cortana like from Halo thing that'll just tell you, hey, let's do this thing, and we need to, there's a lot of context that needs to be built into these bots, and even in RAG. Which is, if any of you haven't heard of, RAG, retrieval augmented generation, it's the idea that before you send a question to your actual model, you include a whole bunch of extra context from documents or from spreadsheets or from whatever to make the answer better, from the model, and it can pull answers directly from your documents. So it's like talking to your documents. And even with RAG, the implementations are still getting figured out right now. It's not like easy and as fine-tuned as you want it. But what you can do is, in the proactive detection kind of world, is you can, like I said, build checks and stuff. So in the defensive world, let's say you want to get more towards proactive detection. Well, the bots right now are really good at building threat hunting rules, detection engineering rules, Splunk queries. And so you can automatically, kind of build these types of queries or templates to do things to empower your people, and get closer towards proactive detection, like you're talking about, right? So, a lot of teams right now I know are, like there's always a Splunk guy at every organization, right? Like a lot of people use Splunk. I mean, not everybody uses Splunk, right? But you have a SIM, and you have one person there who's usually your SIM expert, who knows the query language, who knows how to build the alerts, who knows how to tune it really well. And that's like a hard job to do as one person. The AI can scale your one person to the power of 2 to 3 to 4 based on how fast it can help you build these detection rules. But there's still a human in the loop right now for a lot of these things. So there's also other ways to scale, right? Let's say you find a vulnerability, like I said, that exists one place, and you find it via Pentest report because your Pentest vendor gave it to you. Well, your pen test person, or you can take that finding and try to scan, build a template in Nuclei and scan across your whole infrastructure and remediate holistically that whole finding, which is closer towards proactive detection. And, even your pen test vendors can do that for you, right? They're definitely capable of doing that for you.
Yeah, no, I agree. And kind of part of what you were alluding to was cutting down time and cutting down that kind of stuff. And, it's a good segue into, how the reporting can benefit from using it. And I think the big one is the last bullet. A lot of pen testers, a lot of cybersecurity people will just grind through and get things done. And it takes time, and lots of time. And so, saving time, which saves the business money more efficiently. But the biggest thing I think is burnout, being able to leverage the tools that you have available to you to reduce the time that you're spending on something, and reduce those iterations that it takes to, write a report. It's what PlexTrac was kind of founded as, was to reduce the time it takes to write reports, make them more consistent. And so I think this is just the next evolution for that, to help testers and kind of increase the overall cybersecurity posture of the organizations that we help, and subsequently the country with everything going on right now. So, it's but I think that those kind of things, it'll allow testers to kind of take a step back and be able to focus more on their technical work and implementing those things, and helping, advising the doers on how to fix it. So
I wouldn't be too scared right now, right? Like the things it's good at right now are helping us parse documentation, building queries and templates. It's really good with things with words, right? But it's not very good yet at complex workflows, connecting the dots, being creative in technical disciplines. And it's also never going to find anything that hasn't been already talked about in its training data a lot of times. And so we're still going to need technical people to come up with really creative solutions to problems. So I don't see it really taking anyone's job. I just see it as a tool to be aware of and use to your advantage. And just like a new hacking tool comes out that's awesome, you need to learn it, and it's not sometimes it's not trivial. And this is another tool in your tool belt to be a better technical person.
Yeah, I agree. It's not the hammer for the thumbtack.
Yeah.
A lot of people think everybody's just going to throw AI and LLMs are going to solve, the world's problems. And it is going to help, it already is. But yeah, to your point, I think that there's a lot of work to be done in continuous validation. And I don't think that the human in the loop is really ever going to be removed wholly. I think that, at a certain point, we're going to hit an inflection point of AI generated data replacing human generated data. And then what is it learning off of?
It's learning off of its own generated data. Yeah. Which is scary. There's a lot of white papers discussing that right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's definitely some interesting problems that the industry is dealing with. And I think there's a lot of great papers out there. I'll post some stuff on my LinkedIn if anybody's interested in looking at it. But there's many research papers about how we're solving this and how we're trying to just increase security across the board for everyone. And for us at least, we were, before we hit the hour here, the biggest thing I think when interacting with these models is knowing the limitations and knowing what you're doing with them. I think that data security is a big piece that not a lot of people are thinking about. They're used to going to Google and just typing in, I need to buy this product, and it pops up. And I think that GPT, ChatGPT, and other systems like that, they are providing that same level of convenience, and so users are just doing that without thinking of the follow-on implications or where that data is going. And so, especially in cybersecurity, from a pen tester or technical executor position, putting those sensitive pieces of data or that sensitive data in there can be bad for those specific clients. But from an organizational perspective, like a CISO, controlling where your organization is putting that data is also going to be key, because if you have employees that are just dropping it in different locations, you end up with a situation where proprietary data is revealed during responses from ChatGPT. So I think it's organizations really reining in that data privacy thing is going to be big.
I mean, one of the basic examples right there was, I think it was Samsung, right, where their employees started using ChatGPT and then had opted into self-training on their data. And so then they started seeing their proprietary information and code come out as answers in ChatGPT. So they had to ban their developers from using it internally, right? So that's the first thing you think about as far as like, your proprietary data can end up in the training sets, the post-training sets. And so, everybody right now is scrambling to build their own model or take one of the open source models that exists that are licensable for you to use internally and deploy that internally. And then anybody wants to use AI can use that internal model. Never goes out to the internet. The only people that control it is you. And, until really recently, we hadn't had anything that had really hit the quality of standard of GPT-4. But in the last few months, we've gotten Llama 3, which gets very close, not quite there, but very close to the standard. And you can deploy that internally at your organization, and you can add RAG to it and post-train it for your purposes. And so everyone's scrambling right now to deploy Llama internally to be their internal model right now, which is I've got a box right here running, Llama for my specialized use cases. So yeah, that's kind of where everyone's going.
Yeah. There's lots of ways that individual practitioners can get these things on their local box, get the models, smaller models, and run them on there, and kind of do all this pretty securely. And we kind of had that same sort of mentality going into this, was that continuous training loop and those kind of things. It is good to increase quality of model responses, but when you're dealing with sensitive pen testing data and you're dealing with sensitive customer data that they don't want models to be trained on, because that could potentially be repeated back. I think with Chat GPT, all you had to do was ask it to repeat poem a bunch of times, and it would start dumping training data for the model. It's been patched, but yeah. So there's all kinds of new vulnerabilities coming out, and AI and LLMs are not immune to those same types of vulnerabilities. And so us coming into it, we really wanted to figure out how to do it and how to do it securely. And so static models, not continuous training, those kind of things, but really accentuating it with the other methods and grounding it were very important. And so, we've got the benefits up here on the slides, but yeah, we've got the speed up of reporting, which we've kind of, talked about a bunch on here, and the communication. But I think another good piece of the last point, increasing security data awareness, is going to be a big point that we're going to be pursuing to incorporate threat intelligence and those other things to kind of keep the practitioners abreast and reports current with, accurate and current security data.
I mean, to be honest, if you haven't used PlexTrac's new AI feature, just as a consumer, right? Like, it's a little button in the bottom of each section when you build a finding or a report to help you write out those sections. And this is not because they brought me on the website. It is absolutely fantastic. If you've ever written reports before, you know how much of a pain it could be, right? It's like, a lot of times custom vulnerabilities that aren't in a database already, you're completely writing those from scratch. You can make typos, you can describe something too technically, like we talked about, and the button, you just push it and magic happens, and out comes, a description, technical remediation advice. And yes, you have to review it like everything, but the model is really, really good. And honestly, it's been a lifesaver in writing reports, for our stuff. And then you can take those that you make, and Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, you can add them to the global database that you can use on any of your reports, right?
Yeah, so we have, and they work really good. So PlexTrac uses another mechanism called shortcodes. It works really well with shortcodes if you utilize those. But yeah, you can generate those descriptions, those recommendations, or entire findings, and save those to your content DB. You can go back and bring in old ones, import them into your report, and even use AI to additionally refine those. I can give you a quick run through let's see. But yeah, it's been really great. I was a user of PlexTrac before I joined the team, and it already helped me significantly as a tester and as a cybersecurity practitioner. But so this kind of, again, it just grows on that and evolves it to what we're looking at. So we have our server side code injection vulnerability description. We can either review it and edit it, or we have missing recommendations right here. So I can hit use AI and give it a couple of seconds to process, and it will come back with recommendations that are, they work with that blend between technical and strategic recommendations for these findings. The first kind of reports usually consumed by those executives, and so having those high level recommendations are big. So as you can see over here, we have the overview of what the vulnerability is, and then overall recommendations, strategic recommendations for this vulnerability. So the normal input validation, sanitizing input, so that's based off of a generic kind of finding description, but Where this platform kind of really shines is pen tester takes their raw notes from their test, which are not pretty at best, and
Yeah.
and put them in here in their raw form, and our system will do its best to reformat that and pick out the important pieces, and then enrich it with the data that you already have in the platform for that report or for that client. And doing all that securely, making sure that it only has access to the data that it should have access to. And then we just insert it, and it drops right into our.
I don't know if this is spoilers, Mike, but are you, like just as a consumer, I want to know, right? So let's say I want to write a whole new section, which I've done with you guys before, is build remediation sections that were defensive oriented. And so I have more sections at each finding. Will I in the future be able to tailor the system prompt to make those sections, customizable?
You're really putting me on the spot, aren't you, Jason?
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry.
without saying too much, it's an intent for us to move forward on that kind of avenue, starting out with kind of a set
killer feature.
So and already we can kind of add a custom field here and give it a key. So if we want strategic, if I can spell insights, not that one. We can come down here and ask it for strategic insights. Now, obviously, we're not giving it a value to begin with, so we're not really giving it much to work off of. It's just
it doesn't have a lot of context yet.
Exactly. And so normally, kind of where we're heading with it is to learn off of or emulate what you already have in there for different strategic insights, to kind of look at that, do a context evaluation and a mimicry. But we can pretty much put whatever we want into the key and label for our custom fields and add those.
That's super cool.
But to your point, we do plan on adding some additional functionality pretty quickly.
Very cool.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I as a practitioner, as an old user, I think this is, it's going to be great. It's going to be great for testers to be able to, and that's, I'm a little biased, of course, but, it's, we're really trying to do some cool stuff with this and give back to the community and really enable them to kind of deliver value. So
that's awesome.
I'll open up the floor, for last minute questions. I'm also going to, sorry, go ahead.
I really want to stop and take questions right now, but we are so short on time. We went right up to it, but the conversation was fascinating. And I do want to say we definitely got some really big high fives from the audience and kudos. People were enjoying the conversation. So I think you got to a lot of the questions that we had. And I know there's a few that we're going to have to leave behind. So I do want to assure everyone in the audience that we are going to make sure that PlexTrac gets all of the questions you asked today. So they will have a chance to follow up with you. You will get answers back. And I'm going to kind of sneak in a question here because a few people were asking things like, what kind of training should I do? And it's wonderful. And we got into sort of the foreign and technical side of things. But for somebody that's maybe looking for those early days learning opportunities and how to set guardrails and kind of get started, I'm wondering if you could give us a little bit of advice for that. And then I think what I'll ask you to do is transition that into how to reach out to you both and how to continue the conversation with each of you and with PlexTrac as well. So maybe Jason, we can ask you to kick us off, and then Mike, you can kind of bring us home on that.
I really like IBM actually does a security series on all things AI, LLM, and security and securing some of the models. So I think that they have some really great YouTube videos that are absolutely free. So you can go look those up. And then if you have any questions or anything, I am at Haddix on Twitter, JHADDIX, and just at me. And if you have any questions about AI stuff, I run a whole class on this. If you're interested in the more advanced spectrum of how to use AI for security people, for red teaming, blue teaming, or purple teaming, I run a class called Red, Blue, Purple AI. It's linked on my Twitter profile, so you can come grab it. So
super smart too. Great course. I know a couple people that have taken it, and it's amazing. Yeah, we've put up a link on here to see if if you want to demo the product, and for the training piece as well, there's also some additional videos out there for AI processes by hand, or cheat sheets on learning, the different terms and things like that for AI and LLMs. And I think those are if you're just touching ground and trying to get into it, learning those terms and what they mean and how they affect the AI, talking about temperature and top K and other micro parameter things, knowing about what those are will really give you a better picture of how you're interacting with it. And then, if you want to reach out to me, I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm also on X at Artificial Mike.
Awesome. I so wish we could just keep going with this conversation. We'll have to do an hour and a half next time just to get through all of the interesting facets here. But I do want to say thank you for taking a very large topic and kind of biting off a piece and making it really interesting and digestible, and just a fascinating hour. I hope that we'll get to dig in a little bit further and keep going with this conversation. I hope we'll have you back again soon. But I want to thank both of you for coming to talk to us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
All right, and to everyone out there that asked some great questions, again, keep those coming in. If you still have one burning a hole in your brain, ask that question, and we'll make sure that you get a response back. I also want to suggest another great way to get some follow-up information right away is to visit that handouts tab. There's 3 really cool takeaways from PlexTrac. You've got the ultimate guide to writing a quality pen test report. I saw a few questions coming in about that, the reporting. So this is a great way to kind of dig into that a little bit further. You can sign up for a demo. You can do that right on your screen right there. You can click into the handouts tab. Make sure you do that. And there's also a how to select a pen test management and reporting automation tool. So these wonderful guides that are going to help you follow up on all the information that we just got today from Mike and from Jason. And obviously there was a lot to cover. Like I said, big topics, and we're zipping through a lot in an hour. So spend some time with those handouts and make sure you dig into that a little bit further. And definitely book that conversation with PlexTrac. That's the best way to really dig in, right? Is to kind of get into the sandbox with an expert and start chatting through how it's going to work for your organization. So I hope you all take advantage of that. Okay, now I am going to, before we wrap things up in our very last minutes here, we have a prize giveaway for you all. I know you're counting along at home for that. So we have a $250 Amazon gift card. Now I do want to remind you that that $50 best question gift card is still on the table. We will be reviewing all of the questions asked after we wrap, so stay tuned for that one. But our winner of a $250 Amazon gift card, who is here live and present at the webinar, is Matt Gregaines from Texas. Matt Gregaines from Texas, congratulations. You won a $250 Amazon gift card, and we will follow up with you after we wrap the event today. All right, well, with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to once again extend a very heartfelt thank you to PlexTrac for making this webinar possible, especially to Mike and to Jason for, again, such an interesting conversation, for giving us so many exciting ideas and things to consider as we are building, maybe reviewing, refining, enhancing our own security programs as we think about pen testing and the whole world of pen testing. I think there's been a lot of opportunities to kind of redefine the way we're thinking about things. And that really brings me around to all of you out there. And I want to make sure that I extend my biggest thank you, as always, to all of you for taking the time and the opportunity to join in this conversation, to participate in that opportunity to redefine the way we think about things. We're all learning about AI together. We're learning about the good, the bad, the ugly, the scary, the fun, the exciting. And the more that we learn and the more that we stay involved in these discussions, the more likely we are to keep this tool as a tool for good, keep us on the light side, right? And keep those innovations coming. And I hope that you take this and kind of run with this conversation in your own circles. Talk to your colleagues, talk to your friends, and start thinking about how you could implement some of these opportunities in your organization and in your team. Well, on that note, I'll wrap it up. I hope that I get to see you all at a webinar again soon. And until then, have an absolutely beautiful end to your day. Thanks all.